Ishmael is an important figure in the sacred scriptures, especially in the Jewish, Christian, and Islamic traditions. His story is mainly recorded in the Old Testament of the Bible and in the Quran. He was the firstborn son of Abraham and Hagar, the handmaid of Sarah, Abraham's wife. Ishmael's story is deeply connected to the divine promise made to Abraham, according to which he would be the father of a great nation. In Genesis 12:2, God says to Abraham, "I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing." In this statement, God makes a direct promise to Abraham, stating that he would be the father of a great nation and that his name would be known. Understanding this promise is essential to understanding the context in which Abraham and Sarah lived and the circumstances that led to the birth of Ishmael, an attempt to fulfill the divine promise. Abraham and Sarah were old when they received God's promise, which made the conception of a son even more unlikely. Furthermore, Sarah had been barren since her youth, which made the situation even worse. The inability to have children was a constant source of sadness and challenge for the couple, and the long wait created anguish and uncertainty. At times, Abraham and Sarah may have wondered whether the promise would really be fulfilled, and how God could accomplish something that seemed impossible. Given the delay in conceiving, Sarah suggested to Abraham that he take Hagar as a concubine so that he could have children through her. Abraham agreed, and Hagar became pregnant. At the time Abraham lived, around the 2nd millennium BC, societies were often nomadic, and family ties and marriages were extremely important. Practices such as having a servant to bear children were cultural responses to the pressures to secure descendants and inheritance. Impatience, especially on the part of Sarah, in trying to fulfill the divine promise by human means, resulted in disastrous consequences, leading to conflicts between Sarah and Hagar. These conflicts highlight the negative effects of decisions made out of impatience and a lack of trust in God's plans. The atmosphere in Abraham's home became so unbearable that Sarah threatened to kill Hagar. Feeling oppressed and out of place, Hagar fled to the desert in search of relief. Alone in the desert, Hagar faced the uncertainties of a barren environment when, in a moment of loneliness and distress, an angel of the Lord appeared to her. The angel brought a comforting and prophetic message, revealing that the son Hagar was carrying would be named Ishmael. The angel also prophesied about Ishmael's future, describing him as a wild man but blessed by God. This divine intervention in the desert not only brought comfort to Hagar, but also gave a meaningful purpose to the son she was carrying. The name Ishmael means God has heard, reflecting God's response to Hagar's suffering and circumstances. So Hagar returned to Abraham's home, and sometime later Ishmael was born. Abraham did not hide his love for Ishmael, his firstborn son. In Genesis 17:18, Abraham is quoted as saying to God, "Oh, that Ishmael would live under your blessing." Abraham, concerned about Ishmael's future and perhaps eager for God's promise to be fulfilled through him, asked God to bless Ishmael. However, God had specific plans for the son of Abraham and Sarah, as we will see later. In response to Abraham's request, God renews his promise to make his lineage a great nation. In Genesis 17:19-21, God tells Abraham that Sarah, his wife, will have a son whom he will name Isaac, and that the divine covenant will be established with him as an everlasting covenant, being his God and the God of his descendants. As for Ishmael, God promises to bless him, making him fruitful and multiplying him. He will be the father of 12 princes and will beget a great nation. Although God reinforces the promise of a great nation through Ishmael, he makes it clear that the specific covenant for the line of promise will be through Sarah's son Isaac. As time passes, the improbable happens. God fulfills his promise and reveals to Abraham that, despite Sarah's advanced age, she will conceive and bear a son. This news is initially received with disbelief by both Sarah and Abraham. Upon hearing the announcement, Sarah, now elderly, laughs internally because the idea of conceiving in old age seems absurd. Her laughter reflects a mixture of surprise, disbelief, and perhaps a certain resignation in the face of the apparent impossibility of the situation. God, noticing Sarah's laughter, asks her why she laughed, highlighting the singularity of the event that is about to happen. Isaac's birth occurs exactly as promised, and the son's name, Isaac, which means laughter, is directly linked to Sarah's initial laughter. The implications of this event are profound. First, it marks the fulfillment of a divine promise that seemed impossible to human eyes. Sarah's initial disbelief turns into fulfilled faith with the birth of Isaac. Furthermore, this event has repercussions on family relationships, especially the dynamics between Isaac, Ishmael, Hagar's son, and Sarah. The arrival of Isaac increases family tensions, culminating in the expulsion of Hagar and Ishmael, which illustrates the complexities of human choices and the fulfillment of divine promises. Sarah's initial rejection and the subsequent expulsion of Hagar and Ishmael into the wilderness place mother and son in a difficult situation. The family dynamics become marked by tensions and feelings of abandonment. Ishmael, as a rejected son, struggles with questions of identity and belonging. In the wilderness, Hagar and Ishmael experience loneliness and uncertainty. The Bible describes Hagar's anguish at seeing her son suffering, and Ishmael's struggle to adapt to an unfavorable environment. At a certain point, Hagar and Ishmael's situation becomes desperate, as the water runs out and they face the prospect of dying of thirst. In her grief, Hagar places Ishmael under a tree and walks away, unable to bear to see her son perish. At this critical moment, God intervenes. An angel of the Lord calls to Hagar from heaven and asks what the problem is. The angel then tells Hagar not to fear, promising that God has heard Ishmael's cry. The angel reveals that God will provide a great nation from Ishmael. God opens Hagar's eyes and she sees a well of water nearby. Hagar goes to the well, fills the water skin with water, and gives Ishmael a drink. This well, miraculously provided by God, saves Hagar and Ishmael's lives in the desert. After divine intervention that provides water, mother and son continue to live in the desert. Ishmael grows up to be a skilled hunter, skilled in the use of a bow and arrow. His mother, Hagar, arranges for him to marry an Egyptian woman. The Bible mentions that Ishmael had 12 sons, who are considered ancestors of several Arab tribes. In Genesis, it is said that God was with the boy as he grew up. He lives in the desert of Paran, where he becomes an archer. His mother chose a wife for him in the land of Egypt, which highlights the cultural connection between Ishmael and the surrounding region. In addition, the Bible also records that Esau, Isaac's son, married Ishmael's daughter. He went to Ishmael's house and took Mahalath, the daughter of Abraham's son Ishmael and sister of Nebaioth, as his wife. Although the biblical account does not provide many details about Ishmael's adult life, there is a later reference in which he is mentioned alongside Isaac in the context of Abraham's death. In Genesis 25, it is recorded that his sons, Isaac and Ishmael, buried Abraham in the cave of Machpelah in the field of Ephron, son of Zohar the Hittite, which is opposite Mamre. This is where Abraham and his wife Sarah were buried. This passage suggests that despite initial difficulties, Ishmael and Isaac, half-brothers, came together to bury their father, Abraham. The Bible mentions Ishmael's death but does not specify the cause. It says only that Ishmael lived 137 years, died, and was gathered to his people. The term Ishmaelite is used to describe Ishmael's descendants, who became a great nation, as promised by God to Hagar and Abraham. These descendants are often associated with nomadic peoples who inhabited the desert regions near the Arabian Peninsula. In this way, the name Ishmael not only became a reference to a specific lineage, but also became a relatively common name and was frequently mentioned in the Bible.